I hope my voice is up and live. You guys can hear me. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to another educational session or symposia out of the Abu Dhabi STEMI Task Force and the Emirate Cardiac Society. Tonight we have a STEMI symposia with the focus on the pre-hospital care. This session is coming to you with collaboration with the American Heart Association. As you saw in the introduction video, the care of a STEMI patient is an effort of a lot of people. It starts from the pre-hospital, from our colleagues who attends the patient in the field, all the way to the emergency department, physician, nurses, ambulance, cardiology, CCU. So it's a full spectrum of people that takes care of this patient to save that life. Today we have a focus, as I said, on the pre-hospital care for a STEMI patient. The session, as you would see, is coming with the collaboration of the American Heart Association. The objective of this session is to focus on the chain of survival and the pre-hospital part in terms of recognition of the STEMI. So identifying that this patient got an acute STEMI that needs an urgent attention, where time is muscle, and time sensitivity is becomes a top priority, and getting that patient to reperfusion is the objective. So recognizing these patients, a rapid transfer, and sharing the experience between our colleagues within the Emirates and also with our international partners like the American Heart Association. So I would like to welcome my colleagues, the speakers. Today we have a strong panel and strong speakers that will share with you their experience in the management of acute STEMI and the pre-hospital care. So I'm going to introduce them as we go, just for the sake of time. So we will start our talk. Before we start, of course, there's the question and answer part where, please, these sessions will not be robust without your interaction. So we need an interaction. So in the question answer on the chat box, please put your questions, and we will try to address them as much as possible. So we'll go ahead and start. So our first speaker is Dr. Suresh, and Dr. Suresh is an interventional cardiologist and a medical director of the Heart and Vascular Center at St. Elizabeth Healthcare in Cincinnati, Ohio. And he works with the American Heart Association on acute MI documents. So he is going to share with us his experience and the evidence with the focus on the pre-hospital care. So Dr. Suresh, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul Majid. I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully this will come. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, great. Thank you. So first of all, thank you to everybody for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to speak to you this evening. As always, I know in the Middle East, growing up in India, you always thank God first for what he has given all of us, and also to all the wonderful people in the greater Middle East for the care that they provide for the people there. And this is a wonderful opportunity to improve what is already being done there, and hopefully with the help of the American Heart Association and with the help of some of the physicians here within the AHA, we should be able to have a collaboration and provide a system of care across the greater Middle East. So with that, I'll go forward with my slides. Okay. So I want to start my talk by sharing a patient perspective. So we had a 65-year-old man who comes in with chest pain syndrome. And actually, he was driving to work and suddenly passed out in the side of the road and was unconscious at that time. So immediately after people on the side of the road calling 911, the emergency personnel came to the side along with the police, and they arrived at the site of the accident, and they noticed he had passed out, and immediately they attached the EKG leads, and they found out that he was in cardiac arrest, and also found that he had ST elevation in the anterior leads, suggestive of an anterior myocardial infarction or a cardiac arrest related to his heart. So initially his blood pressure was okay. He was breathing pretty rapidly. And because he had passed out and was unconscious, he was intubated in the field. And then immediately he was transferred to the cath lab in our center. And here you can see, I hope this projects well, you can see that the arrow marks to the left anterior descending artery that was closed. And subsequently, that artery was opened with a balloon and a stent. And we got a pretty good result with how the artery was opened immediately. So that's just an example of how the complexities of care, as Dr. Abdul Majid had mentioned, is you can see that the care of the patient involves many people to make this work. And sometimes when I speak, I always say, if you were to use a 100% rule and say 80% of the care actually comes from all the people outside the field, and actually as physicians, it's the 20% of care that we do. And right from the person who goes out to the field, identifies that somebody has a heart attack, then the EMS staff and the personnel who take care of them, and then how they are transported to the hospital system, all of them make a very vital part in terms of how we manage this patient. And then we move on to a system of care, which we sort of did in the greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky region, which is called as the Lifeline STEMI System Accelerator Program, which we could also do in Abu Dhabi and its surrounding areas to create a project by which you could use multiple systems across the greater Abu Dhabi region to see how you could have a single method of care by which multiple people across systems can work with each other and try to get a system of care that would benefit all the people, not just in Abu Dhabi, but also outside Abu Dhabi in the greater UAE. So that is essentially going to be my talk. And so when you talk about systems of care in patients with STEMI, we want to look at it like how we do management of trauma. Most of the patients who get injured outside by a motor vehicle accident, most of the EMS professionals know how an accident victim needs to be taken care of. You apply the same methodology that you use in trauma to somebody with a heart attack. That would be the key. So a trauma system of care is an organized, coordinated effort in a particular area, let's say if it's in Abu Dhabi, and the true value of that system of care is from the seamless transition from one phase to another and integrating all the resources that are available. And the success of the system is largely determined by the degree with which all the people work, and also some of the policies or the public policies that are available within Abu Dhabi and the greater Abu Dhabi region and outside UAE. So the idea is you look at trauma, then you look at STEMI or heart attack care, and you put all of that together to see how you can make that as a single system. So this is just a schematic which shows that the most important thing is the public. Why is it important to teach the public? We have to know that early recognition of a heart attack and prevention is actually the first step. So trying to establish an early recognition system by which, along with various professionals, cardiologists, primary care doctors, various physicians, the social workers, trying to educate the public about what are the signs of a heart attack, what are the signs of, people have high blood pressure, they have diabetes, smoking. All this becomes a big part. So if you were to educate the public first and teaching them, okay, if you have symptoms where you have discomfort in your chest, then you got to call 911, or you got to get the emergency medical personnel involved. So let's say the person identifies that, okay, I'm having some discomfort in my chest. Is this a heart attack? He calls 911, or the family calls 911. And then the ambulance and the EMS providers go to the scene, and then they notice somebody with chest pain. And immediately, as soon as they go, within the first 10 minutes of the EMS services showing up in a room or in a house, they get an EKG in somebody with chest pain. And I'll show you in the next few slides how we have a system which is a mobile-based system by which the EMS professionals can actually transmit the EKG immediately to the cardiologist or to the hospital, by which he or she can open up the cell phone, look at the EKG, and immediately activate the STEMI system. And either it can go to a hospital where they have a cath lab and they have STEMI systems of care, or it can go to another hospital where they may not have that, but they can still use thrombolytic therapy or fibrinolytic therapy. And in that case, we can help the patient in some way or form. Along this way, at least in North America and in the US, you need to make sure that the people who pay for this, the health agencies, and all the policy makers all team up together to make sure that such a system works. So this is just a diagram or a schematic of the state of Kentucky, which is in the middle of the country. And why do I show this? This is just to show that if you look at areas which are red in color, they are the areas where they have systems of care and where they have large hospital systems. But if you look at all the other areas in the country, in the state, you can see that there are shades that are lighter. Most of them are small towns. Most of them don't have cath labs. Most of them are just like UAE, where there are small cities, small places where people don't have the means to go to a cath lab. So how can we help all the people outside of a greater metropolis such as Abu Dhabi and see how can we provide the care? And this is also to show that if you look at the number of people or the mortality rate, you can see that the mortality rate varies according to various people. If you live within, let's say, 10 minutes of a hospital in Abu Dhabi, I'm sure your mortality rate would be a lot better than in a small town where they have to transport the patient, say maybe for an hour, 2 hours, by the time the patient reaches the cath lab. This is just to explain how, if we do this correctly and we all work together, you could also achieve these things. So when you look at the state of Kentucky and the STEMI systems of care goals, most of you who are listening or who are physicians know that our goal is to open the artery in 90 minutes, door to balloon in 90 minutes, or first medical contact to opening the artery in 90 minutes. That's what we are trying to achieve. So, meaning we saw the picture of the ambulance going and picking up that young person with chest pain. If we can open his artery in 90 minutes, the chances of him having a heart attack or the chances of him dying gets really low if we can open it within 90 minutes. And sometimes when we open the artery, in 3 months, when we get an echo, their heart muscle is completely normal, showing that actually even the heart attack has been prevented. Even though the artery was closed briefly, we can open it and save lives that way. Sometimes we are not able to do it in 90 minutes. So what we try to do is to immediate transfer of the patient to a PCI capable hospital so that this same thing can be done. And our goal would be 120 minutes in such a case, where how do you get a patient from the field to a hospital or transfer him from one hospital to another hospital within 2 hours or 120 minutes. And in that case, that person's life can be saved that much better. Sometimes that is not possible. So what we do is, if you think the transfer is going to be longer than that time, then giving the patient fibrinolytic therapy or thrombolytic therapy within half an hour would also get the same results. So fibrinolytic therapy is still standard of care all over the world if the patient is not able to reach the cath lab. Our goal today is to teach as many people as possible and develop a system of care within UAE with the help of all the physicians and the staff there, to see how we can get a system of care in time over long periods of time working together. So you can see there, what I want to focus in this slide is just on the right side. This is data showing that if you look at 0 to 60 minutes, the mortality rate of somebody dying is only 15%. At the same time, if you look at the mortality rate from 180 to 360 minutes, it's close to 30%. Indirectly, what that means is, if there are 100 patients that we take care of and we do this right, we can save up to 15 lives in some way or form. And if we don't do this well, 30%, 30 people could die. So the difference is, if we do this correctly over a period of time, you can say that you can save close to 15 to 30 lives by doing this every time somebody has a heart attack, and trying to prevent the heart attack and trying to establish a group within the larger Midwest to see how best we can do this. And I think if you provide certain systems of care, which is what Dr. Abdul Majid and his team are trying to do, it would be wonderful for the people in Abu Dhabi and the surrounding areas to develop a system of care. So when you look at the Kentucky progress towards improving systems of care, in 2015, about 5 years ago, we started looking at this data, and 5 years ago, working with a lot of hospital systems, trying to see how you can reduce the time from first medical contact to the time that we open the artery. How can we do that fast? This just shows that the data is from symptom onset, how you can see that gradually over a period of time, you could reduce this. I'm not sure how well this projects, but the idea is to say that every time we look at a patient, the fastest we can activate the EMS, the fastest we can take that patient, get the EKG, transmit it to the cardiologist, transmit it to the hospital, the sooner that patient's life can be saved. So when you look at, this is some of the data that's been presented from UAE, and you can see that the median time of events from symptom onset to administration of reperfusion therapies in acute STEMI patients that arrived to the hospital by an EMS versus non-EMS. So the first thing that one of the things that we should do as a group is to try to teach the public, do not come to the hospital by car. Do not come by calling a friend. Do not come by any other means other than calling EMS. That is something that if we can try to teach as many people as possible, that would be a wonderful initial start, is to tell people that if you have chest pain, calling EMS is something that is very, very important, because the EMS personnel are trained and they can save lives. Because a lot of times people try to call somebody, then they wait for the person. Before you realize, it's half an hour to an hour is taken. And a lot of time people die within the first 30 minutes to 60 minutes of a heart attack, more than what you and me can help them with. So trying to look at the median time of events, if you, here you can see, there's a lot of time that is spent by the time the artery is open. So anything that we can do to reduce that would be wonderful. So this is, we created a system by which we got all the EMS providers throughout our state talking to each other, that every EMS provider indirectly can work with each other, and providing a system by which all of them work together. I know this is not easy in a lot of places. Even here, it was not easy. The idea is to first start somewhere, and anytime when you start something, people will work with each other. It takes a while, but once they know that they are going to save their own brothers and sisters and their mothers and fathers from having a heart attack, a lot of barriers can be broken. And in that case, we can provide care to all the people who are involved in heart disease and stroke. So just a few lines to say initially, all the patients would be given oxygen, and oxygen helps the heart, as you can imagine. Everybody gets an aspirin. Nitroglycerin is something that can be given, but care should be taken in giving nitroglycerin, because sometimes when you give nitroglycerin, patient's blood pressure can go down. So I try to teach my EMS staff not to give nitroglycerin for everybody with chest pain, but just to take the blood pressure first, make sure how they are symptomatic, giving them something for the pain. And if their blood pressure is high, such as, let's say, 140, 150, then that's when you give nitroglycerin. Getting the EKG, pre-hospital notification, all of that is key. Spending a few minutes on this is one thing that changed care for us. This is a mobile-based system called as Pulsera, which we utilize throughout our system and throughout the EMS providers. We provided the Pulsera system so that the EMS provider can go in, get the EKG, and it's transmitted to the hospital or to the cardiologist. I look at it, I look at the EKG, immediately I know it's a STEMI. I activate the cath lab. The patient bypasses the whole hospital system, comes directly to the cath lab, and then in that case, we are able to open the artery sooner. And you can see this slide very clearly. Prior to initiating this in our healthcare system, we had door to balloon time about 90 minutes, about 92 minutes. And now we can see that post Pulsera, we were literally able to reduce the time to opening the artery about 20 minutes, from 92 to 78. And then subsequently now, working with multiple people, our goal is in 2020 is about 59 to 60 minutes. So the idea is, how can we reduce the time delay? And sometimes people will say, oh, you called me and we 30% of the time or 40% of the time it was not right. The idea is not to worry about that. The idea is to say, hey, it's okay to call us. It's okay that there are patients that we may think that it's not a heart attack, but every time we do that, there's going to be one person's life that you would save, because 70% of the time, the EMS providers are probably right in sending the EKG, then the cardiologist can take time and then open the artery in that way. So if you look at, this is a map of our STEMI and the drive times from various areas. And I don't know how it projects, but you can see that it takes about an hour for people in the surrounding areas to get to the hospital system. And it depends on further you go out, every county, it takes a long time for them to come. So the idea is to create a program by which you involve multiple communities to do this. And this was just the Lifeline Accelerator program, which demonstrated that, if you were to join multiple regions, this was done all across North America. And you can see the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky region was one of that. And you could see multiple areas: Connecticut, Denver, Houston, Las Vegas, New York, Portland. Throughout the country, we created these methodologies to say, how can we improve regionalization of care, which is what the physicians there in UAE are trying to do, that the team of physicians are trying to work together and trying to put together a process by which multiple systems across Abu Dhabi and the UAE can work towards getting a system of care. So you can see that when we did this, just by doing this program and talking to people, I'm sure even in the UAE, you could achieve the same results. And we literally were able to reduce the time by a minimum of 20 minutes across the whole system just by starting a program like this. And you can think and see, okay, what is 20 minutes? That's 20 minutes is saving a bunch of lives that you don't know. It's close to 10 to 20 lives you can save in Abu Dhabi just by getting a system of care across the greater UAE. And if we can work together and do that, that would be a wonderful way by which multiple people's lives could be saved. And this is, this is just basically various regions. I don't know how it's projecting, but you can see generally the blue bar and the red bar, and how in every area you are able to show that there is a benefit when you do regional outcomes over long periods of time. So with that, and this is probably just the last slide, which goes to say that if you were to do these programs across, you can see that the EMS providers across all these areas were given awards and various recognition. So it's not just the physicians who get the recognition, it's the EMS providers, it's the people who go and pick up various patients from various, it's the whole system is a methodology by which we could create a system so that all of them feel that they are valued in what they are doing, so that every one of us can work together. So just to finish up my talk, I want to say, what are the important points that I want people to know? Early recognition and prevention, that's the key. Trying to identify if somebody is having chest pain, preventing a heart attack. Second, activation of the emergency response system. 3, starting early CPR, trying to teach as many people CPR and trying to get a policy around activation of CPR. 4, early defibrillation, which means once the EMS people go to the patient, activating the defibrillation. And finally, the post-cardiac care, which would be a completely different focus. Thank you so much for inviting me for this talk. And I hope once more, have a wonderful evening. And Dr. Abdul Majid and his team, thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh, for this nice summary and sharing your experience in Kentucky with us. We'll move forward with the rest of the speakers. I would just remind you on the time. Major Mohammed Belushi from Abu Dhabi Police. Mahmoud have been working with us on the pre-hospital care on Abu Dhabi Police, Dr. Riyad, Dr. Maalij, and Dr. Ametha for the last few years, and he's going to share with us their experience on STEMI care. Mahmoud, can you share your slides, please? نحاول على قد ما نقدر نلتزم بالوقت. Let's try to get the time. I think we'll be running out of time, guys.
شكرا دكتور عبد المجيد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mahmoud Al-Blushi. I'm an advanced paramedic, also working with Abu Dhabi Police Ambulance previously and now with the Abu Dhabi Civil Defense Authority. I'm going to overview some of the work we have done previously and the role of the EMS, which is Abu Dhabi Police Ambulance previously in STEMI care and activating or launching the STEMI pathway in Abu Dhabi Emirates. The outlines will be an overview about us as an ambulance service, then how we get involved in STEMI care, followed by the activation process of STEMI pathway in Abu Dhabi Emirate, some challenges we have faced, and initiative we have did with our stakeholders to maintain the STEMI pathway running, and some lessons also we have there eventually. So Abu Dhabi Police Ambulance Department previously and now within Abu Dhabi Civil Defense Authority covers all Abu Dhabi Emirates and the first response to any medical emergency, all in Abu Dhabi and Al Ain and Adafar regions. We have providers with the different levels: emergency medical technician basics, intermediates, advanced paramedics, and emergency doctors. We have many vehicles we will overview: ambulance vehicles, incident response units, and other vehicles. As you see in the pictures, some of these vehicles are meant to carry ALS and arrive faster on the scene to ensure rapid response and a better care being given to the patients. With some of the devices also used, such as Lucas and monitors. All of our ambulances, whether BLS or ALS, they have full equipment. They have ECG recorders with certain brands that have a capability of doing 12 lead ECGs, transmitting ECGs to healthcare system, which send it back to the servers. Has all the advanced airway capabilities for the ALS stuff, such as intubation kits, supraglottic airways, ET tubes, and all the ambulance staff with all of us had a training of how to recognize the signs and symptoms of acute myocardial infarction, how to give the oxygen when it's needed as appropriately, and help relieving the pain with the available resources and scope of practice, whether basic or advanced. According to our scope of practice in Abu Dhabi Police Ambulance, Abu Dhabi Civil Defense Authority, our EMTs are allowed and should be able to perform ECG for diagnostic purpose, and also interpret or transmit it to the receiving facility. It could be reviewed to establish further diagnosis from emergency department all the way to the hospital staff. So how does it work? Basically, for us, we do use the monitor in addition to the normal assessment that the clinician do on the patient. And then this transmission goes, as you see, from the live pack to the electronic patient care report system, the tough book, you see it in front of you. And that tough book send it to the service, which in order send it to the certain screen available in all emergency departments that we deliver patients to. And it appears as you see the following. So the emergency department can go to the specific patient comings with a pre-alert and press ECG data. Once they do that, they can view all the recording of the ECG as the paramedic was seeing it, and it was recorded already in the live pack. So that it gives a better capability of the staff and physicians at the emergency department to review and verify the findings of the patient vital signs, and the ECG, and in the top of what already the stuff that on the ambulance. So that's a short video. We try to run it, how the ECG runs once they play it. Okay. So as per to American Heart Association, as Dr. Suresh already introduced, ECG is a very important tool, a diagnostic tool to identify the patient that having a heart attack or myocardial infarction by monitoring and observing the interpretation, looking for certain diagnostic landmarks, and as agreed already with the stakeholders in the pathway, and to do all that with all the works in a timely manner, so we can save more time, reduce all the time spent from the first medical contact all the way to the cath lab to the balloon. So first medical contact happens when the EMS staff arrive in the scene and they do the diagnosis. Our goal is to not to spend more than 10 minutes on the scene and try to do all the necessary assessment with a team available on the scene, doing the ECG on the scene as much as possible, continue monitoring the patient on the route, and try to save more time. So it's a balance of doing what is needed exactly, plus saving the time and not to exceed what is the reasonable time for the EMS to spend on the scene. Abu Dhabi Police Ambulance System has a critical role. We always participate in early management and recognition of our STEMI patients. We don't only transport the patients. It's not the only transport mode to take the patient to the hospitals. We have a role in an early, the early and initial diagnosis of the STEMI, also pre-hospital triage of STEMI, and then taking the patient to the right institution that has a PCI capability. If a hospital is 5 minutes away in Abu Dhabi with this pathway from the ambulance or the scene of the patient and has no PCI capability, when the patient is meeting the STEMI criteria, the other facility is about 15 or 20 minutes. Definitely we will go to the other hospital after activating that and initiating all the procedures. We bypass non-PCI just to make sure that we reach the timings for the patient to be whether 120 with a first medical contact or 90 minutes from door to balloon. That was already said in this slide, and we always prefer immediate transfer to PCI capable hospital. That's again a proof of what's already been said and advised from our colleague Dr. Suresh about what the American Heart Association recommends to standardize the care, and I'm sure that all the teams are working to get the mission right. This is an overview about the average bed, door-to-bed timings in 2019 for the STEMI patients in Emirates of Abu Dhabi. As you see, all of them are less than 90. There are some variations depending on the receiving facility, as we have more than one facility in Abu Dhabi that receives, they have the PCI capabilities and they receive directly the patients. And also it varies from a region to another, affected, of course, by a lot of other factors which are contributed mainly by the public. We are involved in we were involved to get all these things done, the STEMI task force with our stakeholders. We were also, as a EMS, involved in designing the STEMI pathway activation. We were involved in all the training and drills with our stakeholders. We played the important role of the EMS and the pilot. Also, we continued the involvement with the partners in the STEMI pathway task force to improve continuous care. We also contributed in the public education, as Dr. Suresh already said. It's very important to teach the public how they recognize there is something wrong, the signs and symptoms, and what they should do after they call the EMS. what they could do more, especially if the patient collapses and goes in the cardiac arrest. So this is started, as Dr. Abdelmajid mentioned earlier, many years ago, back in 2015, how we have launched the pathway. That was how the pathway looks at the beginning as an idea. Ambulance calls instead of calling a DP operation, which is the dispatch center only, it communicates also with a Saha OCC, which has facilities at that time to receive patients with PCI capabilities. The flow chart of STEMI pathway has moved and improved a lot during the times. And this is the most recent from September 1st, 2020. And we do update these pathways, flow charts and procedures with a partnership with our stakeholders, all of them, even though they represent multiple facilities, not from the same organization, semi-government, government, private government, hospitals, all of them, just to make sure that whatever we are drawing as a team, it's in the best interest of the patient and give us the best results. For example, Abu Dhabi Island is divided in two areas. Those areas are made in a way that ensure the proximity of the patient to the nearest PCI center, not just a regular hospital. Trainings has started earlier, even before 2015. These are some examples of the training done with Abu Dhabi Police. We had a lot of contributions from our stakeholders, facilities. They did a great job in getting us involved, inviting us to their facilities, seminars, symposiums, workshops, a lot of them, just to make sure that our staff are on the same page, receiving all the knowledge and information. As maybe you heard already Dr. Suri saying, he instructs his EMS teams in the area to do something. And we used to listen and learn things from our partners, the healthcare facilities, to ensure that we are all on the same page. These are some of the activities already in the past years we have done also in the same programs. And these are an example of the sheets that we have used just to make sure that we are doing all the drills on the time. It's a timeline drill sheet. Also, some of the drills has been done with our partners, first partners, especially with the pilot phase SKMC, showing some of the similar phases of the work should be done as it was in the played video at the beginning. Also, we continue always. That's one of the examples where Abu Dhabi Police was contributing in public education, which was Earth Hour. We reach a public in everywhere, parks, malls, at their homes and majlises, just to make sure that we're delivering the public education about saving lives, recognizing heart attacks, cardiac arrest, acting, reacting, early activation, early recognition, and multiple language, Arabic, English, and all the most of the common languages here in the UAE. We had some challenges with the training. We overcome that with the partnerships of our stakeholders and their support. We had some technical issues. We overcome that by doing tests and drills, making sure that these things could be overcome by knowing where there's the glitch, by improving the electronic system, whether from Abu Dhabi Police side or even from stakeholder side. So we have learned finally that stakeholders' involvement is very important to make this successful. Training and implementation has a big role. Clear communication between our own staff and us and our partners is very important to make sure that the information is delivered. Monitoring the system all the time with all the changes, just to make sure that we continue improving. We can't continue to improve without monitoring and having the feedback continuously. That's all. Thanks for your time. If you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mahmoud. This is great, and I think the involvement of STEMI care or pre-hospital STEMI care in Abu Dhabi came along with over the last few years, and this happened because of all the efforts put by you, by the team that works with you, and all the crew and the ambulance paramedics engagement in the care of STEMI patients. For the questions, we'll keep them to the end of the session. Our next speaker is a very close colleague, Dr. Saleh Faris. Dr. Saleh is a consultant emergency medicine, EMS, and disaster medicine expert and he is currently serving as the president of the Emirates Society of Emergency Medicine. And Dr. Saleh is going to talk to us about STEMI care in the UAE towards a national integration. I would also like to congratulate you, Dr. Saleh, for the Good Samaritan law that was passed recently. This could not have happened without all your effort and your colleagues. تفضل دكتور صالح.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Dr. Abdul Majid, for the kind introduction. And I want to congratulate the country and all my emergency medicine providers for this effort. The law wouldn't be passed without long meetings with the government and the different workshops and a small group effort. So it wasn't my effort. I was lucky just to have the right team, as many other projects. So I'll just share and try to catch up with the time. So good evening, everyone. I think we're all coming from a similar background of the importance of STEMI care. And I'm not here to present a different angle, but more of a bigger picture. This is something that, for those who know me, that I always say I'm a matchmaker. I try to connect dots between different parts of a great system that we have. So I have nothing to, no financial conflict. And what I'm trying to say here is a personal experience and personal opinion toward what we try to get at here. I'm going to get into some importance of the national, why we need to think big, why it is important, some of the challenges toward integrating smaller systems that we have now into a national level activities, some of the effort that we put at a society level, and final directions that I see toward national integration. A case, I always try to motivate myself with certain cases, good or bad, just to keep us going. Most of the voluntary work that we do here is honestly things that beyond work, but we need to keep remembering that whatever we do as an extracurricular activities or not just our daily work, but voluntarily can change people's life. I've been asked to review a case. Unfortunately, it's a mortality case. But if you notice, this is a place for those people may recognize it, but the building on the right is a hospital. It's a private hospital. And the building on the left is another hospital. So I've been asked to review a case, a STEMI case of surprisingly 42-year-old lady who presented with anterior wall toward on the right hospital, the smaller hospital. Unfortunately, looking at the data was really shocking that it took them about an hour and something just to try to transfer the case into the bigger hospital, which has a cath lab. Unfortunately, due to the miscommunication and the delay of that, the patient went into a cardiac arrest, and that was really the end of it. So we could really, with a system integration and a bigger umbrella, we can easily transfer a straightforward cases with a very good outcome. So that's why I'm very interested in a public health level of emergency care and try to look at the emergency medical continuum, or what I like to call it, a mature emergency medical system. So we always, if you look at 9 o'clock prevention, it is like a cycle. So we obviously don't want to have any emergency, but that's life. But we need to invest heavily as a public health providers into how to prevent emergencies. But when it comes, we need public health education, and then the whole cycle starts from access into emergency number, and then pre-hospital care, and a very good how to integrate it with a hospital level, and then all the way to rehabilitation. So this is more sort of a cycle or a continuum of care. WHO presents a very similar framework. If you notice, it's 3 column. The column on the left is the scene, what we always look for into public involvement, how the pre-hospital, the community or bystander can really contribute of activating the whole system. Then our colleagues come into the EMS level, in the middle column here, the transportation, and finally the facility with a different contribution. This is not just applicable, as Dr. Suresh mentioned, but it could be applicable to trauma, stroke, STEMI, and so on. This is more of a framework. This is a paper that I published last month. I'm honored to call it the Emirates, but it stands for Emergency Management Integrated Roadmap, aimed towards every healthcare system. The purpose of this basically just to give you a bigger look into what I've been working on for the past 10 years or so. What I feel is the challenge of the emergency care. The most important thing is the governance. We need to know who's governing the whole emergency medical care, not just in a emirate or in a region, but at a national level. Another thing is who coordinates it, operation centers and so on. This is really crucial, not just the government who tells you what to do, but who does the daily work. If you look at the column in the left, the pre-hospital care. This is again, not just applicable to STEMI. This could be to mass casualty, trauma, stroke, and so on. How to really connect it with the middle column, which is the hospitals. But also there are bigger things that we need to look at from a system level, which are, the information sharing, the registries. How do we really look into different things? COVID, for example, here, although it's not applicable, how do we detect cases across the community? All of this needs an overall integrated system that connects the dots and so on. I've had the pleasure of attending a meeting at the WHO back in 2016, and we shared different experiences from different parts of the world. And unfortunately, we are not different. A lot of the communities are struggling with what we see, or what we always call it, the coordination at a system level. This is the group, different parts of the world, and luckily that not this meeting only, but many meetings resulted in sort of a recommendation that came out at the 72nd World Health Assembly back in May in 2019, which recommended, I think this was a landmark publication from the WHO, that mandates or highly recommends to every government or Ministry of Health worldwide that having some sort of important components of emergency care is a key. Example, having a lead agency, what I discussed, having registries and so on. This is an important document that I recommend. So those are some of the challenges that I see, the lack of, not the lack, but I think the difficulties in having a one sort of orchestrated governing body for all emergency care across a country, not just in the UAE, but anywhere else. The coordination, training programs, what one system could have, another may not have as a training. Registry data is wealth. We need to really have a national data that helps us. And finally, the public awareness and contribution. For those who are not from the UAE, I'll try to be very quick. We have a multiple governing body, for example, the Department of Health in Abu Dhabi down, Dubai Health Authority, and the Ministry of Health sort of oversee the healthcare. So standardizing the care within one system can be challenging sometimes, but we're very lucky to have a very synchronized system in the nation. And also this was very evident if you're following the news at the COVID response, that was very cohesive and coordinated. Those are many pre-hospital care providers. We're lucky to have 3 main EMS providers in the country, but again, we have multiple EMS providers, inter-facilities, and the different providers that we have. So again, having one system or one size fits all might not be as easy. This is an important screenshot that I remember. And again, this back in 2015. And I remember at that time, I just accidentally received an email that I was copied announcing that Saha is one of the main hospital organization or corporate here running the government hospitals in Abu Dhabi, that I was CC'd announcing that there is a coordination between one facility to another, between two hospitals coordinating STEMI care. So I replied to all CEOs and corporate and CMOs and so on, that and that time Abu Dhabi ambulance was incorporating and starting the EPCR. So I said, you know what, this is should not be two hospitals project, but rather there, as much as I know, Dr. Abdul Majid and the EMS, Abu Dhabi EMS, and many other people, cardiologists and so on, tried very heavily to build up an Abu Dhabi STEMI program. So we got a good response. And then, as the group mentioned, in 2015, we managed to get a task force on heavily meetings and coordinating. And I think we got the right team and stakeholders around the table, and we robustly moved on forward. As Dr. Sirish mentioned, this is not only applicable on STEMI, but the system is very simple. For the sake of time, I can't go on details, but you really need an inclusion criteria or activation process. You need someone to coordinate any disease, stroke or STEMI or trauma, but at the same time, you need to take them on the left there to the appropriate facilities. For, in our case here, a facility that has a cath lab. This evolved in Abu Dhabi to a different level, and we had a multi-stakeholder platform that, if you look at the bottom there, not just STEMI at the bottom, but we try to escalate, and we currently have stroke program, trauma program now evolving heavily, but also other diseases that we're trying to capture at the system level. Nationally, I represent the Emirates Society of Emergency Medicine here, which started back in 2012. So we go out to the community in the country here, and we try to teach, in our case here, STEMI. So we have ECG workshops, STEMI care education, and so on, just to try to educate our colleagues from different departments, emergency departments, how to activate and how to be part of this. We have different courses that we offer. I don't want to take much of time. And currently we're establishing, or it is established back in 2017, a Gulf Federation of Emergency Medicine. So this STEMI experience can evolve into a Gulf level where we can save more lives. As Dr. Abdul Majid mentioned, the Good Samaritan Law was an idea, an initiative from the Emirates Society of Emergency Medicine back 4 years ago. And we started it with a workshop. We managed again to get the right people around the same table. We discussed, and we felt that, you know what, there is a big need for a Good Samaritan law. This was the workshop. We got Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Health, and the EMS providers and so on around the table. And we had very good, fruitful discussion. And alhamdulillah, last September 30th, it was officially announced. I apologize, it's in Arabic untranslated, but it's a Good Samaritan law within, as part of a criminal law. It's not an independent Good Samaritan law, but for us, it serves the purpose, and the community now are protected to save lives. This will hopefully evolve to recognizing and evolving into the different systems. We have, alhamdulillah, a very good relationship with our colleagues from the government entities. We work together in different scientific activities. And I feel the society, ESAM, is there to serve the organization and the government toward the common purpose that we have. We have our own annual conference. It's actually going on as we speak now. And we have different publication. We have very good relationship with our partners and other societies. So moving forward, I'll just wrap it up here, is we need to identify a lead agency if we're going to go national integration. We have the multiple EMS providers, as I mentioned, the 3, and I'm very proud of all of them, to be honest. They have an amazing outcome, an excellent team, and now bridging this to award a national STEMI program will need a lead agency to be identified. We need to standardize the clinical practice guidelines. We need to have a national data, and I think this is where the cardiac society and us and the government itself We need to have data to be able to know what we are looking at. And finally, to have common activities in terms of workshop and similar to this webinar here. And I thank Dr. Abdul Majid to this. In summary, alhamdulillah, I think in the UAE, we're going in the right direction. We have very promising future. We are and we need to put a clear agenda for the future. Alhamdulillah, we are working collaboratively, and we need to build the research culture where, and again, through registries and through data, and that will take us to data-driven practices. Thank you so much. I'll leave the questions to the panel discussion time, and I apologize for the delay. Thank you so much, Dr. Abdul Majid, for the invitation, and looking forward to the next talks.
Dr. Saleh, thanks. I mean, this is great, and it's, you know, it's interesting to see all that work and how it evolved and matured into a law. Our next speaker is Dr. Ahmed El-Hajri. Dr. Ahmed is the CEO of the National Ambulance, and the National Ambulance, as probably most of you know, they cover the Northern Emirates. So they cover a large area, heavily populated area, and we've been working closely over the last months on pre-hospital care, on STEMI, but they have also a lot of experience from before. But because of my current role, you know, I came to interact very closely with them, and I learned a lot from them. So Dr. Ahmed is going to share with us the work that's done by the National Ambulance in the Northern Emirates. We hear the Abu Dhabi experience, and now we're going to hear what's happening in the Northern Emirates. Dr. Ahmed, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Majid. Thank you very much for the great invitations from your side and from the conference organizers. First of all, it's as you said, it's the National Ambulance. It's been working. We are actually part of the 3 EMS provider in the United Arab Emirates. Our responsibilities, it would be included in the 5 different Emirates, starting from Sharjah, Fujairah, Quwair, Ras Al Khaimah, and Ajman as well. So if we can go to the next slide, please. The objectives. I wouldn't like spend more time on these presentations because, to be honest, it's been highlighted before from my colleagues. So our objectives in this presentation, it would be including the protocol, assessment, management, as well as the improve and reviewing that we have to do it with every case that we are doing. Next, please. So on the next 3 slides, we are focusing on why do we need the system. Next one, please, as well. So before, as we said, that this is the chain of survival, but there is something that's been added, which is now the first one. I would say that on those slides, as well as it's how important the STEMI awareness to the public. Before, it was just the medical people who knows how to recognize the sudden cardiac arrest. Based on those research and based on the American Heart Associations, and since these searches started on the 2004, then 2005, then 2010, and all this update, it was focusing on the medical people or medical background people. So then afterward, we found that, or the IHA found that, we have to engage the public, as well as we have to train them how to do or how to deal with the cardiac arrest patients, how they would be recognized, and therefore they are activating the system. How the system would be, once it's activated, it's going to be supporting that patient, as well as creating the link between the patient and the hospital through the EMS people. Next, please, Reem. So that's the journals that's been issued by the American Heart Associations. Next as well. So overall, that's the system, the system component, which is started from the incident where it's that happening, and then the 998 or 999 or 911, then dispatch, fast response, basic life support, advanced life support, transport, ground or air. So all of these, it's been, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, arranged in the United Arab Emirates. Then afterward, there is the other cycle, which is that include the hospital, and there is there is the last two things I would say here. There is public education as well as the prevention or preventive awareness. If we have got those cycles, which is the last two things on the yellow ones, that would be completing the whole cycle. So next, please. And this slide, what we need the patient point of entry. So there is a questions right now. As we see here on this slide, there is the 120 minutes that's in the United States. So what I'm going to ask myself and ask you guys, it's do we have it here in the United Arab Emirates? There is part of it, and there is a breakdown of this one, and there is a part. So we need to enhance our systems to break the 120 minutes. I would say that the 120 minutes is not from the dispatch to balloon. It's going to be from the preventive, which is from the sudden recognize until the balloon. And this is the 120 is our challenge and our things to be worked with. So if we're going to be thinking about where we can break it and how we can break it, we have to break it. We have to break the 120 minutes into a number of areas, and each area we have to focus or we have to be like shedding some lights in order to enhance it in a proper way. Next one, please, Reem. So, partners to success. So there is a number of factors that we have to be closely think about it to be able to success breaking the 120 minutes. First of all, number one, patient and caregiver, EMS provider, physician, nurses, and other provider. We have to be thinking about the PCI and non-PCI, capable, which is the hospital that's been taking the patient to. We have to be thinking about the health system itself, Ministry of Health, quality of improving organizations, third-party payers. So there is a number of factors that we have to be look at it in order to be breaking the 120 minutes. Next one, please. Now we're going to be talking about national ambulance approach. I would just slightly saying or congratulating ourselves for Abu Dhabi ambulance achievement by having those numbers and achieving the less than 100 minutes from dispatch to balloon. And this is part of the things that is whenever that we are taking on in our shoulders, we will be do it and we will be manage it. So if we're going to be talking about stroke or STEMI or sepsis or any kind of medical issues, if we are not going to be raise it on the surface and then start to be actively engaged to find the solutions, it won't be like fixed by itself. So therefore, I would say that we are lucky in UAE here. We have got a very star people. Thank you, Abdul Majid, Dr. Majid. Thank you, Dr. Saleh. Thank you for everyone who are contributing previously and activating right now and working right now to make sure that if there is a gaps has to be raised and has to be fixed. Without your work, without your effort, without my colleague efforts, I wouldn't be saying that our level of care in United Arab Emirates will be reached to that level. So there is support from the leadership and there is support from a number of people who is, I would say, a star in their area. Thank you very much for that. So national ambulance approach, the dispatch guidelines. We have got the guidelines, we have got the dispatch center, and we have got the standardized EMS protocol guidelines as what we're going to see in the next slides. The standard EMS triage tools. So we have got whatever that or what other people has got as protocol, as standardized, as ACC, as educations, reviewing, improving data collections, all these factors or all these successful factors, we have it in hand, but we need to make sure that how we're going to use it to enhance what we are getting, and therefore we are moving from level to level to level. Next slide, please, Reem. That's the ACC BLS protocol. Just to keep in mind that there is a number of protocols, and this protocol, by the way, it's been approved to be used in the Northern Emirates by recognizing from Ministry of Health as well as the Department of Health in Abu Dhabi. So what is the pain? What is the quality of that pain? What does the redirection and where? And what is the severity of the pains, the time that, so all these protocols, all these questions has to be answered and usually start from the ACC. So what, as Dr. Sorish said in the beginning, which is If you're going to be transfer the patient, don't transfer the patient by yourself. Please activate the EMS. Activating the EMS is not just calling the ambulance. Sometimes calling the dispatch center or the 998 or any ACC ambulance command control. And by calling those people, they will be giving you the right directions, what to do and what information that they need. The level of care starts from that call. It might be they're going to be giving you some things as a clue to start calling the information if you are having the first aid courses as an example. So therefore, once there is an incident or once you are at the scene, you might be forgetting a number of stuff, but once you are calling the ACC or the ambulance operation center, they will be start or initiating those prompts. So therefore, you will be following, and therefore, we will be able to get the information that we need and activating the right sources and activating as well as the hospital. So therefore, we will be start reducing and breaking the 120 minutes as much as we could. Next slide, please, Sari. So other cardiac systems that, other cardiac symptoms that may mediate the 12 leads ACG. So we have got the 12 lead ACG in each ambulance in the Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen in the United Arab Emirates, whether if it's National Ambulance or Abu Dhabi Ambulance or Dubai Ambulance. The other symptoms that mandate the 12 leads ECG, it might be the difficulty of breathing, sweetness, nausea, vomiting, low pulse rate, and cardiogenic shock. Next one, please. So specific physical finds as an assessment, which is we are starting with the vital signs, level of consciousness, airway assessment, skin sign, as well as the early warning of source or shock index. Next one. I will not like spending more time with the medical things, as you know that it's like overall because everyone knowing those stuff. So if we're going to be talking about the CASMAT, which is this term, it's exactly in United States, but we are doing exactly the same based on our protocol, the CBGs 134, which is there is a call of sign, there is age of the patient, there is sex, there is the sex of the patient, there is made of illness, examination, vital signs, glaucoma skull, estimated of time of arrival. So all this stuff, it's started from the ACC as well as from the people whenever they arrived on the ambulance board. Next one. So ACC tools, that's overall the protocol that's been issued in 2020. As you see, therefore that's the American Associations. We are adopt that one, and we start the training to cover the things that is being introduced lately. Next one, please. So to obtain the onset if possible, all this management overall, it's part of the protocol. The oxygen always has to be given to the patient. That's always. So therefore, there is oxygen, there is 12 leads, as well as there is the information that goes to the ACC. From the ACC, they're going to be find out if there is a find support STEMI, which is raised up and down of the ECG, and therefore they're going to be contacting the hospital. First of all, based on the patient conditions, we will be start calling the nearest hospital. If the time is allow us, we will go to the PCI, usually preferred hospital, and we are activating them straight away. So to be further activate the telemedicine, which is it's a kind of we call it later on, it's going to be TACC. We are start the linkage of the Ministry of Health hospitals in order to further further activation, further preparation for the patient before they arrive. We have got in the Northern Emirates, as Dr. Abdul said, it's not just the Ministry of Health hospital. We've got the Ministry of Health hospital, we've got the MOPA hospital, which is Ministry of Presidential Affairs hospital, and Dr. Abdul running 4 hospitals of those hospitals. And we've got as well as the hospital belongs to the army, as well as the private hospital, which is a kind of owned by the government in a different Emirates. So we have to establish whenever there is something we build with MOPA, we have to make sure that it's going to be with the MOH and has to be with the army, it has to be with the private owned, which is government private owned hospitals. And therefore, the level of care that given to patient A, it's exactly to B and C and so on. Next one, please. So Dr. Sarish, he just talking about the aspirin, the GTN, as well as the other medications. So based on our protocol, the aspirin on the field, that's usually our protocol support that given the 300 milligram aspirin if the indicated with a patient who has the following signs and symptoms of acute coronary syndrome. Definitely there is the indication, contraindications, and special notes that usually taking with any medications, regardless what is that medications. Even, by the way, in our protocol, we consider the oxygen, it's a kind of a medications, and it's a kind of pain management medications in our protocol. Next one, please. We've got the GTN, which is nitroglycerin, as what is Dr. Sarish as well as said about the contraindications whenever that we're administrating that drugs. Next one. We have got in our protocol the clopidogrel, and this, which is, there is another name of that medication called Blafex. So this one in our protocol, it's been arranged and it's been given, but it's going to be just given to the physicians and paramedics, which is advanced paramedics, who is working in the Northern Emirates. Since we established the services in the Northern Emirates, we start on a basic life support at the beginning. So then after all the achievement that's been happening with the private, which was with the BLS, we are introducing the advanced level. And the advanced level goes mainly on Sharjah and Ajman at this stage as a trial. With that trial, we are introducing all these drugs to be administered by those people as per as the privilege that they have. Next one, please. To just get the count. So we've got the data quality and improvement. Overall, there is development of comprehensive of data system to demonstrate the effective of the system to improve the performance. As I said, it's like everything started from the ACC and then to the people and then to the hospital. We have got the strategic plan that's been approved lately, which is a 2020-2025 for those 5 years. And there is number of KPIs to review all data and all cases that's been happening. As what Dr. Saleh said, right now we are focusing on STEMI, but it's not just going to be STEMI, because we are focusing on STEMI, trauma, and stroke at this stage as mandate in our plans. And therefore there is other areas which is sepsis and burns, and this is where it's alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, it wasn't a significant number of cases that presented at this stage, but as well as we are reviewing all these cases 100%. Next one, please. I'm going to make it a little bit faster, Dr. Abdul Majid. Reem, next, please. Key system measures. We have got all the time for the onset to call 998, the first call AMS to the first ED, which is, as an example, as I said, that's like time to hospital, on-scene time, and time from onset to treatment. You'll see the number later on in the following slides. Please, the next one. So overall, based on our data, that's in 2019. So we have got, based on this gender, we'll find that there is about almost 7% of number of, the 7% of our patients are female. So the most of our patients are males, and the surprising, it's the age between 40 to 50, it's about 91 patients out of those 270. Plus there is the, which is young people, they are involved on the STEMI, which is we are losing people who is in a working life or working time. We lose them because of the STEMI, so therefore we have to enhance the level of care so we can return them normally to their life without having them suffering. Next one, please. If we can see the response time, of course, the response time is very important, and this is where we need to be honest to engage the public. So therefore, they are giving us as a ACC the right information, so we are activating the right sources. If we can see that there is about 79% of our calls within 15 minutes. 15 minutes, that's mean the time that we call the time that they are giving us the informations, which is code 1 considered, and then arriving, located the time, and sending the informations and sending the source to the patients. But to be honest, if I'm going to be talking as the CEO of National Ambulance, I'm happy with, I'm happy with the 79% level? I would say no. I would love to see those number or all those number within 15 minutes in the ambulance services, unless it's a bit far away. And we need to start having a new KPIs that is breaking those 15 minutes into 4, 8, 12, and 15. Inshallah, that's coming very soon. And we are building our capabilities to be supporting those stuff. Next slide, please. So in here, you'll find that the number of people which is arriving to the hospital, we've got 1% within 15 minutes, and 3% within 16 to 20 minutes, 19% of this number arriving to the hospital within 21 to 30 minutes. Keep in mind that it's not whenever they are activating us, we will be straight away taking the patient to the hospital or PCI. We have to do our assessment to make sure that is the patient is ready or not ready, is the patient accepted, not accepted, is the patient is STEMI or not STEMI, because there is number of facts. Sometimes the caller give it to us where we are activating the ambulance as code 1, then whenever that we arrive to the patient, it's kind of gastro pain or extra acidic, or sometimes difficulty breathing, and it's not difficulty breathing, sorry, it's intercostal muscles, which is we are activating as a code A, and we're activating the hospital in terms. And then when we arrive, we have to cancel all these activations. And sometimes we are getting activation from the patients who having a sudden cardiac arrest, but they are not recognizing that one. So the time that we arrive, he just suddenly arrested in front of us. So therefore, we have to do our protocol, applying our protocol, preparing the patients, and take that patient to the hospital, this is where it's the most of the time. And if we're going to remember the 30 minutes, the 120 minutes, those 30 minutes, which is, if we're going to break those 30 minutes to have people recognizing the cardiac arrest, these 30 minutes, it will go more toward the 1%, 2%, which is within 15 or within 20 minutes. Next slide, please, Reem. So overall, as I said, it's like always the time is our challenging or our big enemies that we have to fight. If we're having people who are recognizing the sudden cardiac arrest or the condition of the cardiac arrest, he will be giving us the right information. So therefore, it would be the first medical contact. It would be within the first 10 minutes. If I have got a history of that patient, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, voila, that's good. But usually, we haven't got the history of that patient, which is we have to be working nationally to have a kind of source of information to give us at least the information before this guy calling us, or like if there is someone activating the SOS in his phone or call out for help in his phone. So therefore, I'll be able to get that information from his phone to say that he's a cardiac arrest. So therefore, it's a ring button. As an example, his heart rate goes up because his history or his having a history of cardiac arrest. So whenever those signs on the phone shows, it will be activating the ACC automatically, and we will send the ambulance even before the patient calling. That's our project in the next 5 years, and inshallah, it will see the lights, I would say, within the next 24 months. We've got, as well as the 12 leads, we have got an initiative that's been, one of the initiatives that comes from the Presidential Affairs or Presidential Office to put 10,000 AEDs among everywhere in the country and train people to be access to the AEDs. So if we have got the access and people trained without fear, and thank you very much, Dr. Saleh, for Good Samaritan Law, the thing that stops us or stops people activating the protocol or start using the AEDs or start to be touching the patient is they are afraid of the consequences of touching the patient. So with having the Good Samaritan Law and start working as an EMS to activating the community about their rights, and they do not have to be afraid. They have to be engaging, but they have to know what they are doing. That's going to be minimizing the time, minimizing the catastrophe that we are facing, or the problems that we are facing, the issues that we are facing, as well as it's going to be enhance the level of care that's being given to the patients, and it's going to be, it's going to be by times returned back to the United Arab Emirates. Next slide, please. So the ideal EMS. The question is, first of all, ambulance are equipped with 12 ADs? Yes, tick the box. Tick the, that I believe it's Dr. Abdul-Majid, that's the last slide. So ambulance equipped with 12 leads, yes. EMS provide the trained used to transit the AEDs to ECGs to the patient, yes. So we have got all this stuff. Just we have got, which is number 3, which needs some work, standardized patient, which is point to entry. Protocol to define patients' transport rules. Number 4, it's okay. Number 5, need to be enhanced by PCI, the hospital and the cath lab, which is we need to get the cath lab to all the hospitals, inshallah Rabbil Alameen. And number 6, needs some work to be enhanced, which is hospital communication gaps with EMS. We started right now with the Ministry of Health, and we started already with mobile hospitals in Ajman and in Ras Al Khaimah. And inshallah Rabbil Alameen, by using this level of communications, and we have got some results in our hands, we will be shown to this conference, to the other conference, to prove the points, and therefore we will be connected to the other 17 hospitals working in the Northern Emirates. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul-Majid. Thank you very much for your time, guys. If there is any questions, I'll be leave it to the panel later on.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for this great, explanation on your experience in the Northern Emirates. We'll move to our last talk, but not the least. Dr. Riyad Shalgham is a specialist in emergency medicine and working with the Abu Dhabi Police, have been with us for the last few years, supporting education and developing protocols with the team. Dr. Shalgham got, I think, a case or 2 cases. I know we're running out of time, but I think it will be good to share those cases just to put some feel into what we have been talking about and the importance of it. So, تفضل دكتورنا.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Abdul-Majid, for your invitation. My topic will be about...
عليك ولكن
5 minutes.
Go ahead. لا أعطيه.
Okay. So, okay, I will speak about some real case of STEMI transported by Abu Dhabi Police Ambulance. So the first case, 33 years old male, the chief complaint was chest discomfort with shortness of breath. The patient found lying on the back of pickup. Glasgow score was 15. Respiratory rate 25, SpO2 87% on air. Heart rate 73. The BP was 103/88, and with weak peripheral pulse. So this is the ECG. So as you can see here, we have the ST elevation on lead 1, AVL, V3, V4, V5, and V6. So it was an anterolateral MI. So what we do in pre-hospital setting, we have to activate the STEMI pathway, and EMS STEMI flowchart is clear here for our paramedic. So this patient was in the blue area. That means the ECG was transmitted via EPCR to the CCAD, and the CCAD was pre-alerted. What to do with the patient? So SpO2 was 87%, so we have to give oxygen, then aspirin and GTN. Aspirin given, GTN not given because the BP was 103/81, and the paramedic cannot repeat the BP because the patient was uncooperative and removed the IV. They monitor the patient, the paramedic, and then they activate the STEMI pathway. We have a primary PCI checklist that must summarized and on our EPCR, and this is the details for this checklist. So the time from first medical contact to the door of emergency department was 33 minutes. And this is our timing analysis. As you know, time is muscle, time is survival. So in pre-hospital, our goal for the first medical contact to STEMI diagnosis is less than 10 minutes. The EMS scene time should not exceed 15 minutes. And the first medical to balloon time was 20 minutes or less. And now we make it 90 minutes. So the first medical contact to ECG 3 minutes, and this is good, less than 3 minutes. The EMS scene time, 21 minutes, and because the patient was agitated, and the first medical contact to the emergency department, 33 minutes. The case study number 2, 59 years old male. The chief complaint was sudden onset of central chest pain radiating into the back while sat at his computer. The glaucoma score was 15, heart rate 86, the BP 154/76. The ECG was done within 3 minutes, and this is the ECG. And as you can see here, we have the ST elevation, lead 2, 3, AVF, V5, V6, and we have ST depression clear in V1, V2, V3, and also in AVL. So what to do in pre-hospital? We have to follow our STEMI flow chart. The patient was in the blue area, so the ECG was transmitted via EPCR to the Cleveland Clinic, and CCAD was pre-alerted with the patient. So SpO2 was 97%, so no need to give oxygen. Aspirin, GTN, no contraindication. The paramedic performed ECG with V3R and V4R, and there was no ST elevation in V3R and V4R. STEMI pathway activated, primary PCI checklist done, and the first medical contact to the door of the emergency department, 18 minutes. First medical contact to ECG, 3 minutes, good. And then EMS scene time, 7 minutes, excellent. First medical contact to the door of the emergency department, 18 minutes. So we are sure that the door to balloon will be okay. This is the ECG analysis. So as you know, for the inferior STEMI, ST elevation in leads 2, 3, and AVF with the reciprocal ST depression in AVL, so it was clear. Now, in the same ECG for this patient, you can see the clear ST depression in V1, V2, and V3. And if you see ST depression in leads V1 to V3, do a posterior ECG with leads V7, V8, V9 to help differentiate acute MI versus anterior ischemia. And why our paramedic performed the right V3R and V4R. As you know, in inferior infraction, the right coronary artery will be occluded. And as you can see here, when the right coronary artery is occluded, we have a ST elevation. It is more clear in lead 3 more than in AVF and lead 2. And you can find also the ST elevation in V1. And here you have the V3R and V4R, so you can make it on the right side. And the most useful lead is V4R. ST elevation in that V4R has a diagnostic accuracy of 83% in the diagnosis of right ventricular MI. Case study number 3, 52 years old female. The chief complaint was severe central chest pain radiating to the back and right arm. More than 40 minutes, so this pain, and it didn't call the 999 from the beginning. The past medical history, hypertension, allergic to aspirin. Patient diaphoretic with nausea, and the pain score was 8/10. Heart rate 58, BP 100/61, blood sugar normal, SpO2 100%. And this is the ECG. As you can see, ST elevation, lead 2, 3 AVF, and the ST depression on V1 to V3, suggesting inferior and posterior MI. We follow the flow chart STEMI. Patient was now in the red zone. So in the red zone, we have to call SAHA SOS, and SAHA SOS called the cardiologist and the interventionist, and the ambulance was guided and directed to SKMC. So the ECG via EPCR was transmitted to SKMC, and SKMC pre-alerted. The paramedic, so it is in our protocol, so when the EMTB arrive, in case of STEMI, they have to call for backup. The paramedic arrived and performed V4R and V5R. There was no ST elevation. Patient allergic to aspirin, she received clopidogrel. No GTN because the BP was 97/59. The IV was there, and the SKMC alerted. Now, look, en route to the hospital, and 3 minutes after ambulance departure, the patient collapsed. There was no pulse, no breathing, cardiac arrest with shockable rhythm. 2 shocks given, and we have a ROSC. before you intubate the patient and no drugs was given. So the patient was awake, Glasgow coma score 15, and suddenly collapsed. The duration of CPR, 4 minutes. Hospital alerted of the changes, so we have to alert that the patient went to cardiac arrest, then rose. The vital signs at destination, Glasgow coma score 11 over 15, and the heart rate 58, the BP 119 over 70. So this is our timing. The EMS scene time 20 minutes, first medical contact to ECG 3 minutes, and the first medical contact with the door of emergency department 41 minutes. So as you know, for the out-of-hospital cardiac arrest is a major complication associated with patients presenting with STEMI. Call for backup is a must for our protocol. For all EMTB, they have to call EMT, advanced EMT, ALS team. EMTB start with monitoring the patient, taking IV, and we have to be prepared for cardiac arrest. We have to activate STEMI pathway and pre-alert the emergency department. This is a study about the survival of a resuscitated cardiac arrest patient with ST elevation myocardial infarction conveyed directly to the PCI center. And the conclusion was clear. The conclusion demonstrates excellent survival outcomes for patients with STEMI complicated by out-of-hospital cardiac arrest after directed convenience to PCI center. Also, it has also been reported that conscious STEMI patient resuscitated from cardiac arrest and treated with PCI can be expected to have the same prognosis as those treated with PCI who have not suffered cardiac arrest. So for this case, the chief complaint was severe central chest pain, and the patient and his family called 999 after 41 minutes. So the patient delay can be improved by increasing the public awareness. This is our role, to increase the public awareness. The case number 4, 52 years old male, collapsed while working in the restaurant. It was a cardiac arrest. BLS 2 EMTB started CPR and they called for backup. The paramedic arrived, started epinephrine, the IV was there. There was a ROSC after the second dose of 1 milligram epinephrine. 5 minutes after ROSC, there was another cardiac arrest, but this time was shockable rhythm. Shock was given, followed by ROSC. The BP after ROSC was 155 over 87. En route to the hospital, cardiac arrest, and this time with pulseless electrical activity. So patient received 1 milligram epinephrine and ROSC achieved, and the heart rate was 155, BP 152 after ROSC. The 12-lead ECG post-ROSC show massive anterolateral MI, so emergency department of SKMC alert. And we reached SKMC, we found the team waiting for the pre-hospital team, and the first medical contact to emergency department was 30 minutes. The EMS scene time was 24 minutes. So we have a monthly meeting with the CPC, Chest Pain Center, with our colleague in the SKMC, and we received the follow-up, and this is the ECG done in the emergency department. You can see clearly here the extensive anterolateral MI, and here the coronary artery during angiography. And the last case now, case study number 5, 32 years male. The chief complaint was a severe central chest pain radiating to the left arm, back, and neck for more than 5 hours. Past medical history none. The Glasgow coma score was 15, pain score 8 over 10. Respiratory rate 14, SpO2 99%, good PP with 142 over 94. This is the ECG, and you can see the anteroseptal STEMI with ST depression on lead 2, 3, and AVF. So paramedic followed the STEMI flow chart. The patient was on the red zone. That means we have to call SAHA OCC. And depending on the timing, it was between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m. The ambulance was directed to SKMC, not to SSMC. And ECG was transmitted via EPCR to SKMC. SKMC pre-alerted. SpO2 was 99%, so no need to give oxygen. Aspirin GTL, no contraindication. STEMI pathway activated. And this is our timing. EMS scene time 28 minutes. First medical contact to door of emergency department, 41 minutes, and first medical contact to ECG, 8 minutes. This is the follow-up and the feedback from SKMC. And you can see here that in the ECG, the emergency department, there is anteroseptal STEMI, but look here, the right bottom, the door to balloon time, 43 minutes, and the first medical contact to balloon time, 84 minutes, and this is excellent. And this is the coronary artery pre-PCI and post-PCI. Again, for this case study, the chief complaint was severe central chest pain. And look, the call for 999, the patient or the family called 999 after 5 hours, 34 minutes. So we have a big task to do, and we have now working together in pre-hospital setting to make this time decrease to no more than 5 minutes, and they have to call 999. So the patient delay can be improved by increasing the public awareness. So this is our message. So in case of emergency, especially for the chest pain, you have to call 999. And as you know, for elderly person, for diabetic person, sometimes there is MI and STEMI without even chest pain. We have to look for other signs and symptoms like shortness of breath or sweating. And this is my last slide. Thank you very much for all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is, I mean, this is great. And those cases, you know, they reflect, Dr. Riyad, you know, all the work done by the ambulance services over the last few years, where we see now the door to balloon time, or the first medical contact to balloon time, that improved significantly. And also the number of pre-hospital patients that comes to us are getting into the 30–40% out of the STEMIs. We started with the 10 maybe percent of patients who call. So there's I think over time we're having more public awareness. I know we're running really out of time. I'm just going to give if Dr. Ahmed Munir, who was going to give us also a talk later on, allows, I know we'll ask our panelists the very focused questions and try to get a quick answers to it. So we got a few questions from our attendees. We got a large number of attendees, 430 people are listening to us. Thanks for their time and for their presence. Question: in the ambulance service in UAE, do we give thrombolytic? I know that's not the case, but I would leave this question to the team. You know, maybe Ahmed and Mahmoud, yes or no? Do we give it any thrombolytic?
No.
So no.
We are not giving any thrombolytic. No.
Yes. They and I think, you know, in UAE we are blessed because a lot of you know, the PCI centers, when we mapped it across the country, any patient who is diagnosed with a STEMI probably can reach a cath lab within a timely period, you know, across the country. Maybe some very remote area in the Western region, but I can tell you almost 95% of the population can access a cath lab if they are diagnosed in a timely fashion. Another question: what distance should a PCI center be located for a PCI to be considered? I know, Dr. Suresh, you know, you had the in your network. So did you look at a certain specific distance, or it's just the process and the?
I think the most important thing is the process, and then getting the data as time goes by. So the idea first is to say, okay, we are going to start doing this, educating the public, educating the staff, the paramedics in that area, and then starting to get, so the furthest hospital from our center is probably by car an hour away. So from Greater Cincinnati, which is right in the heart of Kentucky. So we are probably able to do, because we get the EKG to the interventional cardiologist directly from the first medical contact, the cath lab is activated. So I'm already in the cath lab when the patient comes. So even though it's 60 minutes, in another 20 minutes, we're able to open the artery. So we can still do door to balloon. So rather than saying distance, I would ask the EMS professionals, if you can bring somebody safely to the hospital in 1 hour, 9 out of 10 times, I think the professionals now can take care of the patient to the best of their ability. The outside limit would be 120 minutes. That's what the ACC and the AHA would say. If you think it's going to be more than 120 minutes, then you should probably give thrombolytic therapy. So the idea is 60 minutes would be great. 120 minutes is pushing it. But I think that's where getting a registry, getting a database, looking at your own systems of care would be absolutely key, because you probably will do it a lot better than us here. Because if you have a centralized mechanism and applying the things and then going back and reviewing each case, okay, this is what happened here. See, and in some of the case studies, I saw your patients are really young, they're between 40 and 60.
Yes.
So really, you can make a big difference in their lives and their livelihood and their families if you can get systems of care across everything, whether it's trauma or heart attack or stroke. So sorry for the long answer, but that's.
No, I think that's the point. I mean, you highlighted, and I think Dr. Saleh highlighted, and the rest of the speakers is data. And I think we need data, and that will feed back into, it's either time delays or it's, outcomes and so on. Another point.
So what we do, just a quick thing, what we do is every case. So I think I saw somebody show a single sheet of paper. So every patient has one paper that we develop. So each patient, whether he comes from anywhere, there's a single sheet of paper with 4 or 5 pertinent details. And all that is transmitted to a centralized, one of our research nurses. They analyze it. And then every month when we meet, it's presented. So,
yeah,
sorry.
Data is very important.
Yep.
Dr. Saleh, I mean, you have the experience, and this is going to be my last question. You have you have the EMS or the expertise, and you have the emergency medicine expertise. How can we engage more our colleagues in the EMS? I know they're very engaged. We have the examples Dr. Riyadh showed us. Is a great example, but we need more engagement. In the Northern Emirates, we're starting with Dr. Ahmed, but as a hospital or a physician who practice in hospital settings, how would you advise us and teach us how can we get, what kind of strategies, what kind of techniques can we get to support either our colleagues in the MS and how to engage them more? I know.
Thank you, Dr. I'm not sure I have the magic answer, but I think, Dr. Abdul-Majid, this is all from my experience at the public level for the past 10 years or so here. I think the best approach is to make it a formal sort of mandate or one tribe. Alhamdulillah, we have a well-identified stakeholders from EMS providers, but also from the government facilities, because those are the organizations that capture most of the STEMIs. Then we go into the different private sectors and so if we look at the EMS, I think we know who we are dealing with, and alhamdulillah, they're all on board. This is organization or system by system teaching and awareness. But then when it goes to the hospital levels, we need to make sure that, because I deal with, from a society point of view, I deal with my colleagues. I have WhatsApp groups and daily, not daily, but like very frequent interaction with all of the emergency physicians or most of them. When I speak to them, they need something sort of not mandate, but more sort of a formal way of communicating. Why do I need to do this if I'm the only one in that department going to do it? So it's better if it comes from top-down approach. It works well. Obviously, it takes time to develop all of those synchrony. But alhamdulillah, as I mentioned, I'm very proud of the work that we're doing here in the UAE. The good thing, which I think is very important, one is we know where we're going. It's a matter of time. Everyone across the table know that this is the ultimate goal: national integration, STEMI program or stroke and so on. But we know, because we're only 49-year-old country, it takes us time to progress. All of this maturity and growth. But alhamdulillah, for a 49-year-old country, I think alhamdulillah we've done so much at different aspects, not just the healthcare. So it takes time, effort, but again, to answer your question specifically, I still believe that it's a top-down approach in most of those legal or medical legal aspects, and plus education and so on.
Great, يعطيك العافية. I think we're running out of time, and there's a lot of questions. I apologize for my colleagues who got their questions towards the end, so it's difficult for me to put it together, but we'll do our best to answer those questions and get back to you individually. So I will come to the closure of this session. I'd like to thank you all, Dr. Saleh, Dr. Suresh, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Riyadh, Major Mahmoud, and all the team that participated in organizing this meeting and putting it together. Now we will move to the second, or the remaining part of this webinar. And here we have Dr. Ahmed Munir. Dr. Ahmed Munir is a cardiologist in Mediclinic, and Dr. Ahmed Munir will give a talk on the role of rivaroxaban in comprehensive protection of AF patients with renal impairment. So a different scope, but I'm sure there's a lot of interest for some people, maybe of that, of our attendees.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul. Thank you very much for this very nice symposium, and thanks, of course, for all your effort that you have done in the STEMI program. So just few slides. I'm not going to take long time. Talk about patients with non-valvular atrial fibrillation and renal impairment regarding the challenges that we face and what does protection means to them. So it's Mr. Amin is a 75 years old man who is known case of diabetes for more than 30 years and oral medications, known case of ischemic heart disease. He had CABG in UK in the year of 2000. He is non-compliant to his medication. Actually, he came to our ER with dizziness and disturbed level of consciousness. His brain CT showed middle cerebral artery cerebrovascular accident with old aging changes. His ECG showed atrial fibrillation, and his last month's ECG, actually following up with me when he came to me last time, his ECG was actually normal, and there was no atrial fibrillation at all in the ECG, and his labs showed GFR of 46. So how we think about this patient, what is a suitable anticoagulation, especially that is having moderate CKD. So as we know that AF and kidney disease and diabetes altogether are independent risk factors for stroke. The patient who's having an AF is associated with more than 5-fold increase in the risk of stroke, and diabetes itself, it carries more than 2-fold increase in the risk of stroke, and CKD, it's associated with around 30 to 60% increase in the risk of stroke. So all of these items together, or all of these comorbidities together, can lead to stroke. And of course, stroke is a very devastating condition which can alter totally the patient life. So they're all closely interlinked. So diabetes is one of the leading cause of CKD. So if we look into the individualized, if a patient has no CKD or a patient has no diabetes, we find that the incidence of stroke in this patient is in this levels. And if we go into the patient who's having both of diabetes and kidney disease, if we look into their cardiovascular mortality and total mortality in more than 20 years, that we find that we have a magnificent increase in the total mortality or cardiovascular mortality, of course more than if we have each of these comorbidities alone. And 64 of the patients who have non-valvular atrial fibrillation have a renal impairment, which is very common that we have patients who come to us with atrial fibrillation who has a renal impairment, and renal impairment itself increase the risk of stroke, and in the same time increase the risk of bleeding and mortality in patients with non-valvular atrial fibrillation. In some warfarin-treated patients with AF, the studies have shown that there is accelerated chronic kidney disease progression, and acute kidney injury can occur in association with excessive anticoagulation, especially with the people who's taking warfarin. In the ROCKET AF, consistent safety outcome non-valvular atrial fibrillation patient with moderate renal impairment, either if we look into the critical organ bleeding or intracranial hemorrhage or fatal bleeding, whatever the kind of bleeding that we choose, if we compare the rivaroxaban 15 milligram once daily to the warfarin, okay, we can feel in the patient with moderate renal impairment, we can see that in each of these kind of bleeding, the rivaroxaban carries less incidence of bleeding when it's compared to warfarin. And in AF patient, vitamin K antagonist use may exacerbate renal decline, mostly because of increased vascular calcification. And we can see here with increase more the duration of warfarin therapy, there is more calcification happening in the renal vascular bed, and of course more exposure to kidney failure. And this is because of the MGP, non-carboxylated MGP, which is a matrix G1 protein, gets carboxylated by the vitamin K antagonist. This is, of course, a theory of how the warfarin can cause vessel calcification by the inactivation of the vitamin K antagonist, vitamin K agents. If it is if it's inhibited, so this conversion into the carboxylated CMGP will not happen, and the inhibition, there will be no inhibition of the vessel calcification, and lead at the end to medial calcification, and of course deterioration of the kidney function of the patient. In the real world life data, there is a lot of 2 or 3 trials have shown that renal preservation outcome in patient who's taking warfarin-related nephropathy may pose challenges in the management of patients with non-valvular atrial fibrillation. And emerging evidence suggests that NOACs may be associated with preservation of renal function compared with warfarin. So the objective of this trial is to compare the effect of NOACs, the 3 of them, with warfarin on renal outcome. The 3 primary endpoint was more than 30% decline in eGFR, or doubling of serum creatinine level, or acute kidney injury and kidney failure. It's of course a retrospective cohort analysis done in US. And it showed that after 2 years, the cumulative risk was even more better when favors the NOACs more than the warfarin. If we go into individualized or composite of the 3 together, of more than 30% decline in the eGFR or doubling of serum creatinine or acute kidney injury. So the NOACs is less cause less deterioration of the kidney function when it's compared to warfarin for 2 years. And this is the breakdown of each of the NOACs of the apixaban, dabigatran, and rivaroxaban. We can see here that it goes better with the dabigatran and the rivaroxaban, and that's why in 2019 focused update of the American Heart Association and the ACC and Heart Rhythm Society AF guidelines, it's mentioned very clearly, I'm quoting it from the guidelines, that over time NOACs, particularly dabigatran and rivaroxaban, may be associated with lower risk of adverse renal outcome than warfarin in patients with atrial fibrillation. So NOACs is better than warfarin in the adverse event when it's concerned about the kidney. In the CALIBR trial, impact of rivaroxaban versus warfarin on outcome in patients with non-valvular atrial fibrillation and stage 3 or 4 CKD. The background is the link between warfarin use and renovascular calcification, as well as worsening of renal function, has been suggested. Rivaroxaban may be associated with a slower renal function decline versus warfarin. So it's the warfarin, as we said, the renovascular calcification, as we mentioned before, it can cause worsening of the renal function. So what about if we compare it to the rivaroxaban and see how is the decline in the renal function was going to be when it's compared to the warfarin? So the objective is to compare the effectiveness and safety of reduced dose of rivaroxaban 15 milligram versus warfarin on renal outcome in patient non-valvular atrial fibrillation. It was, as I said, it's a retrospective analysis, the real world data, with adult with non-valvular atrial fibrillation with stage 3 to 4 CKD, with or without diabetes, being treated since 2012 to 2017, and the primary endpoint was progression to CKD stage 5, kidney failure or need for dialysis. And we can see here very clearly that the non-valvular atrial fibrillation plus CKD stage 3 or 4, or if we add the type 2 diabetes to this group of patients, that it favors of the rivaroxaban 15 milligram more than the warfarin with a considerable confidence interval. And for the rivaroxaban versus warfarin in patient with non-valvular atrial fibrillation and stage 4 to 5 chronic kidney disease was published in the American Heart Journal in 2020. It's mentioned when the background was the evidence about the clinical benefit now in stage 4 and 5, before it was stage 3 and 4 in the CALIPER trial. Now in this trial, stage 4 to 5 CKD, the benefits of oral anticoagulation therapy for non-valvular atrial fibrillation in patients with comorbid stage 4 or 5 CKD, the data that we have is limited. So what about using the rivaroxaban 15 milligram comparing to the warfarin in this kind of patient, and you see how is the progression of the CKD. And the method, as we said, it's retrospective data, more than 781 patients in the rivaroxaban arm and more than 1,536 patients in the warfarin arm, with no since from November 2011 to June 2018, which is around like 7 years, and the outcome was analyzed. And this is the baseline characteristic. The CHATS-VAS score was around 4.5, the mean, and the mean has blood risk, of course, 3.5, because we know the patient was having stage 4 or 5 kidney disease. They are more of having a bleeding risk more than the patient with normal kidney function. CKD stage 4 is 81%. CKD stage 5 on dialysis was 15%, and CKD stage 5 without dialysis was around 3.7%. We can see here that the rivaroxaban versus warfarin, it showed that the primary endpoint of risk of ischemic stroke and systemic embolization in patients who was taking either warfarin or rivaroxaban 15 milligram, they are less, they are not very well, non-inferior to warfarin. And the secondary endpoint of risk of major bleeding, which is one of the main concern for that, it showed that there is no increase in risk if we use 15 milligram of rivaroxaban when it's compared to warfarin. And this patient, he had an appropriate underdosing, because the problem with using the reduced dose of NOACs, that of course that we have less incidence of bleeding, but in the same time we have increased incidence of systemic embolization and stroke. And this we can see it very well, especially with differently in the 3 groups. But with the rivaroxaban 15 milligram, and especially with dabigatran 110 milligram, we can see here that the incidence of bleeding is even less with a good efficacy. And as we said, that despite that we have the patients, despite that we have agents for the NOACs, which has to be used twice daily, but despite that we have around 30% of the patients who you should be on double dose of either dabigatran or the bexaban according to the approved dosage criteria. It showed that 30% of them, they are not taking their medicine regularly, and the patients are usually taking once daily. So taking the medicine once daily is one of the benefit because of the better compliance for the patient. And if we go back to our patient who has a non-valvular atrial fibrillation with eGFR 46 milliliter per minute and diabetic, choosing for him rivaroxaban 15 milligram would definitely improve, prevent him from having stroke, preserving renal function, and preventing cardiovascular deaths, and protecting him from following stent placement if we do a stent at the end, and supporting adherence, especially if we're taking once daily. Thank you very much. I try to make it as much as we can.
يعطيك العافية. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. And again, I'd like to thank our panelists and speakers for this, webinar. We'll come to the closure of this meeting, and we'll see you in a future educational series related to STEMI. So have a good night, and thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Majid.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul Majid. Good night. Thank you for all of you.
مشكورين.
فرصة دكتور صالح شفناك، فرصة دكتور أحمد الهاجي شفناك نفس الشيء. يلا السلام عليكم. يلا يعطيكم الصحة والعافية. مرايد محمود
يعطيكم العافية.
الصحة والعافية.